It is so dirty.
Can't hear anything now.
Maybe they didn't start yet.
Oh, the village has it muted, so they haven't started. Yeah.
We've just started now. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, I think we're communicating as well. All right, very good. Thanks. We've just opened the meeting and approved the minutes. Camilla's question is, under the new guidelines adopted by change in the village code, do we have purview over demolition? Yes. Which raises, I think you're asking a question about the Keenan application.
No, I'm asking a question about the school.
I'm not sure that we ever have jurisdiction over school properties. Government. Yeah, I think that's, but worth asking the question, because I'm sort of extrapolating that we don't have direct power over village property. Michael, do you know anything about that from your time?
We've never had a situation where we've had to address school-owned property, so I don't know specifically the answer to that. I can look it up. It may not be. It may require talking to the state, actually.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I mean, that's an easy enough question for SHPO. I'm making that an action item if we don't get an answer tonight. Okay, so that's a question, Camilla. Got it. I'm thinking that we probably should not, we're ahead of schedule, which is such a nice, rare thing. We probably should not begin item C prior to 7:15, but Jason, are you the only one coming on behalf of? Well, or fortunately, you're way ahead of schedule. Come on up. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So everybody, we are now little ahead of schedule, continuing a consultation concerning 145 North Chestnut. And I'm basically reading into the record. So this is for a commercial multi-story mixed-use structure of 3 stories. And I have it in my notes, 55 residential units. 68 residential units, 3-story, a mixture of 2 and 1 bedroom apartments.
3 bedrooms.
And plus 2 3-bedrooms. Okay.
So I think there's 8 3 bedrooms.
Oh, 8 3-bedrooms. Okay, I missed that first time around. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Shane was not at our last meeting. Would it be okay to just kind of recap your understanding of what we talked about, and then we can just kind of
Absolutely.
confirm?
Turn to my notes here. So actually, so if that's the case, what I will do is perhaps show the front member. Give an explanation.
Tell me what was going on.
Yeah, oh, sorry. So this would be A
901.
901. This is A901. So the top view here, this is basically along North Chestnut. So that's the view, 32 there, and then actually both of these, so at different angles. So what we're basically looking at is at the bottom of the building here is where we've got our retail space, office/retail area. And then in the front, we've got 2 stories of residential. Then as you go around the rest of the building, we've got residential on 3 stories. So this is the view, though, that you would see. There's a couple of comments, though, that have happened, or events that have happened since I was last here that does affect this view a little bit, which we get to in just a moment. This building is by definition in the zoning code, 35 feet high. The parapets are taller than that though. So that's why you get the proportions that you see here. Tried a number of things to try to, sort of articulate the building, whether it be with sort of a contemporary take on a historic positioning with the cornice, and then also trying to group sort of the two-story element there together to give a definition to from the residence to the commercial space down below. So the rest of the building, all the way around, looks the same. So here's a view from the back. So let's say rail trail is here. So we've got the similar entryway. Of course, we're going to have an entry that's just for the residents there.
Val 902.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh,
902. So that's from the rear, but we're going to keep the same articulation going all the way around the hardy plank wood that wraps each corner with brick down below. We've got a variation of hardy plank, different treatments as it goes around to really try to break up the mass. And so that's sort of where the presentation was last time. We'll give you couple of things that did come up. One of which we heard back from the DOT. So if you notice here on A901, in the front, we're showing some parking that was there along Route 32. So since we met here, we went back to the planning board. It was discussed having a bike lane that goes along 32 as well, at least on the front of our property. So that was something we were trying to incorporate. And then this past Friday, we heard back from the DOT. And if we're going to put a bike lane in, it needs to be 6 feet wide instead of the 5 feet wide, they said. And they did not want the parking there in the front. And so the reason is because you got 45 mile an hour, you get somebody trying to parallel park, likely there's going to be an issue. So it really does open it up quite a bit for us. So something, yeah.
I must have misheard at one point. So there was parking and there won't be because there's a bike lane, or there will be parking and no bike lane?
So there was parking and no bike lane. Now there will be a bike lane and no parking. So it's funny, the drawing that actually my counterpart was not able to make it today. We were going to showed from our discussion, we actually had cut the parking back. We removed 2 spaces to get that line of sight we were discussing. And that did come up at the planning board as well. However, after Friday, now that's not even an issue. So that will go away. But we will have the bike lane, the sidewalk, and actually room for more landscaping now. Although we have to keep the landscaping under a certain height for 15 feet off the curb line for the DOT. So that's something that we'll be now incorporating.
So the bike lane will be in the DOT right away?
That's correct. In fact, that's a requirement, which I was
That's
shocked.
fair.
Yeah. So they set it 3 feet off the curb line, and then it has to be 6 feet wide. So it works out well. I mean, if you look at even our property line, you can sort of see it was going into that sidewalk. So now all of that will be outside of the property line and work really good.
Was there a discussion, given that their rationale was parallel parking with a 45 mile an hour? Actually, I think it's 30.
Well, it's just past us.
Okay. Yeah. But was there any discussion of like a single spot for commercial deliveries?
So we have that already.
Oh, that's going to be in the rear.
Yeah, so we've got that where you come right down. This is a loading zone just for commercial deliveries, as well as for our garbage, which is contained within the building.
Okay.
So all the garbage is inside, then they just roll it out to where the garbage is, but that's also the loading zone for the building. And that leads you to the commercial space and also the residential areas in that space.
Will you have a super in the building? I know this is more of a fundamental question, but
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
I'm just asking because I
For
know.
this client, doing a few projects with them, and they do have a designated supers apartment in the others. I haven't asked specifically on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, but
It's not really a purview. I was just, despite all of these conversations with zero place people, there are plenty of trucks that just park on the road in order to unload quickly. So
it's
either on Mulberry or on in the parking. So anyway, that's
So fortunately for us, I don't know what it is there. You know, because of the height of the building, by the fire code, you're required to have anything over 30 feet.
full circulation.
Yeah, two means of access to emergency access. So this is designed for a fire truck here, so that works out perfectly for loading because
Yeah.
get a fire truck in, you'll get the
Yeah,
deliveries and such
Good. All right, thanks.
in as well. One thing though, or a couple things that we did discuss last time, which I wanted to show you in this view. So
A300, sorry.
I guess A300. We discussed venting, right? At
Yes.
the, for the exhaust, whether it's the ranges or the dryers or also the HVAC system. So what we did is we actually, it turns out after we laid out the different units, we thought it'd be best to basically place them above every window. So we only need about 2/3 of what we see here, but if we place them above every window, then it becomes a feature that we would carry around the entire building, and it fits within the trim that's there. So we would paint it the same color as the trim, and then that would just sort of become a feature, or not a feature, but something that will catch the eye because it's consistent. And that way, it also falls into a flat spot as opposed to being in the siding or something like that. The other thing we did is we found a sill. I apologize, I was not able to get a sample, but a metal sill that's about 1.5 inches bigger than what you would typically see for the windows, because we did discuss that, right? That having a sill. Now, it's not the type of sill that you would see on like a slip sill that's part of a brick, element, but it's just something to give a little bit down there at the bottom of each of the windows, which you can see we're trying to represent there.
And Jason, that would be a total of 1.5 inches off the plane of the window, or would
Yes.
that be an additional 1.5 inches over something?
No, so it's going to come off probably about 1 inch, but I'm trying to get depth this way so that it's visible.
So it's visible from the street.
Right, yeah, exactly. So if you were to look at this is all paneling around the windows to create that appearance of that 2-story. But what we're doing is back banding that trim so that around that entire piece, we're coming off 1.5 inches of a back band that goes around all of that trim panel. I don't have it here, but if you were to look at a historic trim, you've got a flat piece, then you have another piece around the outside that sticks off a bit more. That's the back band that we're then trying to put around this entire unit. And then we'll also have the sill that sticks out at that same depth.
Shane, that was in response to a kind of set of questions that we asked last month about just trying to get some profile, get something that isn't all the same thing. And it was the rate of places, the busy man in this one. And I recall pretty specifically talking about that HVAC solution as, I think at that point we were talking about below. But I think there's some merit to what you came up with.
Yeah, so we did try below, but the reason we couldn't is we couldn't get the units to fit below these windows because we have larger windows that come down a little bit further. And I really feel that the proportions here of the windows really are good, not only from the outside, but also from the inside. And that's what led us to say, okay, you know what, we can hang the units above the windows inside, picture inside building. And then gives us that other alternative. And it allowed us to, if you think about it, the dryer vent and the range hood vent, those are all going to run in soffits in the ceilings. So they're going to exit up high at the ceiling level. So if we kept everything at the ceiling level, then we can keep that consistent as opposed to jumping up and down.
Yeah.
The last thing that I had on the list that we discussed was VP 1. But this is the new drawing. So you asked if I could zoom in,
Yeah.
right, a little bit more, so. Now, again, it makes it a little bit out of proportion because I just zoomed in, but that's sort of what you see now here. Give you that,
That is, to me, really helpful.
but you can see it in its relationship. You see the utility poles.
The- To me is super, even that is very helpful to just kind of get a sense of scale, because the upper one just kind of disappears into the.
Yeah, that's the original photo.
Yeah.
On the back of one of these is the previous one that we had as. So I think we tried to address additional plantings was also discussed, possible trees in the corners, the vehicles in the front, the louvers zooming in and showing the additional venting. So we're able to accomplish that all together. Oh, and the opportunity for outdoor space with benches. So that, of course, has not yet been developed. However, now that we're losing that parking, we gain.
Yeah, I think it's a nice opportunity to create a kind of
I
human.
think that's going to be a much better space.
I recall too, I don't know that we made it a stipulation or even highlighted, but I recall that Michael had asked about some of the lighting, and we talked briefly about bollards, and that got ruled
Yes.
out.
Yeah, in fact. We're going to, I think we had them at 18 feet. Is that right? 9 poles at 18 feet with 23 wall mounted. So I do not have that with me. That's something that I really do need LRC to comment on. But I think we're going to try to, I think the next size down that we researched was 15 feet. So that's what we were going to try to see.
Okay.
Oh, okay. If that could work.
My notes are pretty sketchy. Question: how to solve lighting on the south side.
What was
Yeah.
that?
It's just my note to myself: how to solve the lighting on the south side? Question mark.
That's the Agway or the car wash. Sorry, car wash. I think the E there. Look at. Yeah, so these are the photometrics on the south side. At our property line, we're about a half-foot candle, roughly, and then of course we share this entry. So we're trying to keep these at least at 0.1, which we were accomplishing 0.1 here, 0.2, as far as that entry. Only thing that something I was thinking as we spoke last time, because it's something LRC is working on, is if we added another pole. Right now we've got a pole here and a pole here. We potentially could get 3 here. That could then lower the height and give us the same candles in that space. We're also trying to keep the lighting at the building as low as we can. That's still a little safe because we do have apartments on the first floors in the back of the building. Yeah, of course. Yeah, just a bit more for them.
And do you have any experience on that question? So last month we were talking about maybe 18-foot poles being a little tall for that, but then there's the question of how much the cone diminishes when you drop down to 15. I mean, does 3 15-foot poles sound like a better solution than 2 18s? I don't have any experience.
I guess it's a function of like the output of the light fixture and the beam spread. to meet the foot candle requirements that the walking surface.
Cutoffs and everything else.
Yeah, and also like you don't, you want to avoid having I guess generally like an overlap of like the beam spread, because then you get whatever like hot spots.
Mhm.
So I guess it's just like working backwards from whatever the desired design is, and then just specifying the light and the beam spread to achieve that. So I guess the best way to approach it would be to just like to decide on what the optimal height is, and then I guess just work backwards from there to specify the light and the angles to meet that.
Yeah, that is generally it. And what we've done here is these are all dark sky compliant and full cutoff fixtures. So we started from there and then said, okay, how do we balance basically throughout? The thing about the south side here is, we've got lights on the building, and then it's basically in this area here where we've got our poles.
Mhm.
So sort of limited. It seemed that the spacing was nice, having 2 poles in that area to
Yeah, I
get a
see that.
benefit, and sort of worked out well. To the hotspot comment with the wall mounted, we transitioned from 2.1 to 1.5. So it wasn't like it sort of was a decent transition there. Probably wouldn't get any closer here to the building, because I think then those corner apartments will be impacted.
Mhm.
Probably try to push this one over more because that's the commercial space, and then get another one in the middle if we couldn't. But that's something that we can definitely.
Michael, do you have strong feelings on this?
No, I'm trying to recollect the conversation from the last meeting, but I'm not very successful. But south side seems to me not terribly problematic, because you're not going to see them from the street or from the rail trail.
Right.
And the neighbor is the car wash, which is far greater than your building will probably be.
Yeah.
Hopefully that
So
changes.
I think you should probably, that site doesn't seem to me to be, I think I was thinking more about the rear of the building.
Oh,
Probably.
maybe I misunderstood in my
That
notes.
could be, I mean, the ones that face the rail trail and the residents who have stuff on the other side, and I know there's
Yeah.
notes in the minutes about, the minutes reflect that conversation, talking about maybe putting a fence up temporarily while the landscaping, comes in and matures. Yeah, I think that was probably more of an issue, so than any of the other sides, so.
The one benefit and that makes complete sense on the west side here is where our property line is actually off the page here, and we're at 0 foot candles well before. we
Yeah,
get to
I know you're much further from the rail trail.
It'd be more, I think, people being able to see the light, like depending on where they are, like visually. And
Yeah.
actually, we did a.
And I think a bigger concern actually for the rail trail users and residents to the west of it is lights more than your.
Yeah.
standard.
Yeah,
Which brings us back to that fence. Like,
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've heard from the neighbor.
right. So this is the site section that we did. This is Huguenot Street.
VP3.
I'm sorry, yeah, VP3. So this is Huguenot Street. This is the rail trail stream. And property line is here. And then our paving is here. So this is that location where I think with the headlights would be, this section is taken right here. Okay, right across. So there's us, there's Carlo. Yeah, there's really not a lot of variation here.
Yeah, that's pretty flat.
It is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is the closest house.
I think I'm seeing from the aerial shot that is the Doris house, pretty much directly west.
No,
No?
Doris House is south of that by quite a bit.
Oh, okay. Then somebody else has a backyard pool.
In here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
it's up beyond actually it's close to the, so the Huguenot, it's much closer to the Huguenot Street Farm.
Yep, no, I got it.
Oh, that's good. You have a question?
Yeah.
Again,
I'm done.
I'm talking about the gray colors.
Yes,
Are those negotiable, or is that something that you all, the owners can do that?
I mean. Sure, it's negotiable. The owners have. We spent a lot of time going
Yeah,
back and forth on those, trying to come up with a.
Well, 903.
Trying to come up with something that is a bit fresher and yet still has a little bit of, being able to bring in the blacks and,
Mhm.
and things with this standing seam and such. What's the thoughts?
I sort of, as I said, I think last time it sort of grew me the color.
Right.
But I was wondering if there was any discussion about sort of a more earth tone color, like a beige color or some kind of, something that has some green in it or something like that.
Definitely bring it back to them. will say one of the benefits here that we were hoping to go with is using like the antique dark brick,
Right.
contrasting it with the wood earth tone, and then the rest of the building being in contrast to that. We felt like these buildings are tough from a probably, I mean, you see it where they're meant to, for money, financially, they keep everything looking the same. So we try to come up with a way to sort of break that monotony up a bit. And that was by creating those mix of colors and materials, to be able to do that. So we tried to warm it up a bit with the wood tones, which we felt worked really well with the black windows and that approach. When it comes to the siding, that's something we can take a look at and do an option.
Yeah, I mean,
That's desired.
maybe I'm the sole person. Initially, even thinking about that, so I'm happy to be helped over by it. No, I mean, I like the contrast that you generated, and I guess it's very hard to tell these renderings, but I'm guessing that the grays are pretty subdued, right?
Yeah, so
On sort of a chocolate color, right, the darker one.
these are actually the colors.
Okay,
The gray shower, shadow gray, those are all Benjamin Moore colors. I know, so actually yours should be good. When we do colors, it's with an iPad. We found that it's the closest approximation you can get to online. It's never perfect. Online, that's the closest approximation. But these work within a complementary family of tones. One thing we're not doing is we're not sticking with the standard colors for hardy plank. It's very tough to get. There's only about 11 of them.
oh, okay, so
Yeah, no, these are
gonna be painted.
these are custom, the Benjamin Moore. That
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
custom color.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all going to be custom because it's just you can't get it to work otherwise.
All right, well, I'm gonna withdraw that, so don't worry about
Probably up to the question.
Well, I know I kind of missed the boat on this because I wasn't here last month and I didn't follow up with any comments. I can understand wanting to break up the facade with the wood hardy plank material. I feel like it just, there's almost like one or too many materials going on the facade. And, I understand that we've kind of moved away from going with a brick veneer or some kind of material that would speak to the construction type, or at least be like a representation of some alternate construction material like brick or something, but it seems like there's a lot of different applied materials and it seems a little busy. Like I feel like the design might be a little more cohesive if it lost the wood. And I mean, I understand the move because there's a lot of surface and you want to break up the design. I feel like since it's not reacting to like the volumes of the building, since it's just kind of on the corners and the top vertical siding just kind of like runs around as like a top band. It's not that it doesn't work as a way to break up the design. I just feel like it's moving away from, I guess, the traditional ways of, the material speaking to the nature of the construction, either being like brick or, some kind of board applied to wood framing. And again, I know that that's not the case here, but I feel like it's not, like there are certain moves that you've done to make it look more traditional in nature. And then the way that the materials are being applied on the facade is very different from that. And I guess I'm trying to figure out how I feel about that. And I feel like there's things I really like about the design. Like I really like the storefront windows and the pilasters, and then, that band that you've established. And then above that, having like a different approach for, like the residential units. And I like that. I just feel like maybe the wood is not, to me, like it's in contrast with the brick and also the hardy board. It's like one too many materials, or I feel like is there, and I know that the wood is actually its own hardy material, and I understand that, but I feel like maybe it's I don't know, it's just like a little too busy. And again, I know that I wasn't here last month and I didn't provide any follow-up comments, but that's, I don't know, that's just that, I don't know, I just feel like is there another way to break it up without the wood, or maybe something that's more, is there like even a step or something that you could do on out of the those kind of periphery wings to maybe, like it's not only a material change but also like a slight volumetric move, like on the front there you had two kind of pilasters that are on the full height of the building that die into the bottom of the cornice. Maybe you could have a similar move where you want to transition from the vertical board to the wood, something that's not just like an applied condition, but something that maybe, like the actual, like architecture reacts to, or, it just feels like it's one too many applied trim conditions. Or I don't know, or maybe not, but I guess speak to, if you want to mind, speak to the decision to have the wood where it is and what it's doing to the design, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. So that's intentional. So what you see here was absolutely intentional to break up the corners, the colors, the fact that that's the only one that appears as wood versus the other hardy plank materials. So it's the only one that really has the texture. And the intent was to have the brick as the base for that.
Mhm.
And then that's really what then sits on the base of the brick. And that's really when we have been going through different design iterations to really bring this center core out to make that stand out.
Mm-hmm.
Having the contrast is really what does that. Once we lose that contrast, even with a slight change in plane, which would be very difficult, but let's say we were able to do that even a foot or two, you really lose that center activity and the massing that's there with that space. So that really became an important part of the design. And that's the reason why we carried it around to all four sides, because we felt that, as we went around the building, looked at the massing from different areas, that was a key piece. Now, whether or not it's the wood grain or not, things like that, but I feel that it's important that it stands out as different, and it stands out as a corner mass, essentially, that sits on that brick. You'll notice too, those are the only locations where we have the awnings and those pieces, because that should stand out as its own sort of element there, and that's really to complement that center mass.
Yeah, I could see that. I think it works. Maybe it's the horizontal board that continues above it. Maybe there's I don't know, maybe there's something there that could articulate those corners a little more. Because I mean, as you describe it, I think that does make sense. You know, I could see the hierarchy of the brick and the wood above that and the awnings, and it does serve its purpose. It does divide up the corners, you know, and it does well to do that.
So maybe if we did something at the
Maybe I don't know.
as a transition potentially.
Maybe I guess it's like on those corners are different from the brick to the awnings to the wood, and then the vertical boards of traveling above that kind of ties it back into the adjacent material, which maybe I don't know, maybe you want to go all the way to, but at the same time, I could see value to just kind of carving it out of the corner, not going all the way up. Is interesting.
It'd actually be nice if I could push it back into the building. a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Almost because like since it looks like wood, it almost looks like it's a different construction method or assembly. But since you have that vertical board traveling above it, it gives it a way that it's just like an applied condition. You know, maybe that you can go one step further above that just to make it look like, you know, fully lean into like those corners being a little, you know, being
Right.
different than the adjacent material. I mean, as I'm looking, you know, it's not like I'm looking at this for the first time. You know, I've been studying this since Val sent it out, and it's grown on me. I see the merits to what you did at the corners. I guess I'm just wondering full scale, like how you're going to experience those corners, and if it's just going to look like an applied condition to break up the corners, or if there's a way to make it look more like, you know, I don't know, like a different, like a different assembly, you know?
Yeah, so you know what, I wonder if we went with an applied brick down below instead of a full brick, that would help us be able to take that whole corner section and sort of compress it in a bit more, right? So this is a bit of a higher class building. We're going to have continuous insulation around, even for residential and, you know, other things. But if we go with, instead of the full brick, I'm able to bring that back, then I can take this entire corner and just picture it like being squeezed back a few inches. And that's going to create a deeper reveal at this location. That then may be able to, that'll read different then.
It would be sort of an eyebrow above.
That's right, because now I'm not bringing the brick out, you know, I'm not, all of that was extending out. So perhaps that could be a way to.
Yeah, because I guess as it is now, like the wood hardy plank would be more or less on the same plane as
Well,
the adjacent.
Sort of, the board and batten up above is going to stick out further, and then the trim is going to stick out even further than that.
Yeah.
So that still is going to be about probably 2 inches difference from
Okay.
the plane of the wood to the plane of the board and batten above.
Okay, and the wood being proud of the boards.
No,
The other way.
Okay.
so this is set back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that trim and that board and batten comes forward about 2
Okay.
inches.
Okay.
Yeah, just by nature of being able to do that. So if I can even bring that back another couple of inches, you're going to get a reveal, you know, that sort of.
Yeah, because I feel like the way it looks like it's like those corners are almost kind of carved out a little bit, you know, I guess, you know, just by, I don't know, but
It's also at this scale, the dimensions.
it's
you know,
kind of hard to
inch and a
tell
half.
like the
Things feel
actual
low.
results, yeah. So I guess I didn't fully follow what you had described about like changing the brick material, because so you would go from, sorry, a full brick to
To a thin brick.
a thin
So
brick.
that gives me a couple more inches to, because I'm going to keep all of that as I bring that back. So I was building the wall out,
Okay.
but I'll bring it back a bit more. That just gives a deeper shadow line there that this is.
Yeah. Well, I guess as long as the brick still reads as like, you know, a full brick.
Yeah, so that's.
You know, like when you experience like the depth of the brick, like if it returns in anywhere. or
Yeah, it
something
doesn't
like that.
return to the windows intentionally. You'll see the
Okay.
trim there.
Yeah.
Could I throw in a variable? Could you bring up the drawing that has the HVAC venting? Because I wonder, Shane, if that does anything
900 or 300, sorry.
A300. Yeah, I don't know that it's so hard to compare, but there's definitely more
Want to look at
interest, I think, with events.
about A302.
Oh, yeah,
It's a sort of an aerial view, but the other thing,
no, please, go ahead.
the other thing I'm planning on doing or want to do is eliminate the brick here. After looking at it, it's getting too like just too thin
180.
and turning those into panels. So then that whole entire base would be panel
At the front part.
at
yeah.
this front
Yeah,
part.
yeah.
Yeah,
I like-
these just aren't working. so-
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I guess also like just speaking to the actual pilaster design there. I feel like, I don't know, because those are shown as what, fluted? They have like their flutes.
In this location, yes.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know, Mia, maybe if they're just like flat with like a recessed panel or something. I feel like the flutes, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't have an issue with it, but when I think of fluted pilasters, it's very traditional. It's very kind of, like, I guess like Greco-Roman, and I don't know if you want to, I feel like maybe for the pilasters more of like an industrial leaning pilaster instead of something so traditional, maybe.
I have no problem even going to like a 2-panel appearance
Yeah.
there.
I think
It
that-
does have to be broken up because they're a bit slender for the height.
Mhm.
And so doesn't work if there's nothing there.
Yeah, I can understand that, because I guess just the material that's going to make up, the pilasters, like, there's a material, there's a size
That's right.
limitation to that. So, and I guess, and also on the pilasters, I noticed that like the capital is basically like that fascia that returns a little bit, and that kind of forms a capital. It seems like, in comparison, like the base of the pilasters seems a little small
Yeah,
in compared
yeah.
to the way that the capitals are formed by like the returning trim. So maybe that could just be, not to make them really big and beefy, but I guess
That
to
definitely.
balance it out, like
Right.
they could be like a little bit
So
bigger,
what I will
so
have
they're not
to,
so top heavy.
yeah, that absolutely. I agree with you. What we probably will stretch them out just a bit and add a piece of trim down here so that we can get the aluminum storefront to work.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So-
that's right.
So
Yeah,
we're
'cause-
gonna have to, so we would add a piece of trim on either side of the storefront to be able to get that.
yeah, I think that'll give it like a little more visual
Yeah.
depth too, which will look good. Yeah, and I think to your point earlier about getting rid of a little bit of brick in between, and just like that give you the same material as the pilaster, but
That's
just like a
exactly it.
flat panel.
Yeah, so what I was gonna do is, actually, we started sketching it Friday, is 2 panels.
Okay.
A smaller one at the top, larger at the bottom. I think that'll work well as we were looking at it. Probably line it up right about here.
Yep.
So we get a smaller panel, we get the larger, and that'll be nice behind.
Yeah,
Smaller in terms of height.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Vertically.
And then I think maybe those bases, would you call them plinths in this context?
Yeah.
Just something a little higher.
Panels to baseball.
yeah,
Nice to
yeah,
be-
yeah, the base.
We've
Yeah, it
actually been
just looks
working on
like
that on the opposite side too. We're gonna have panels around that storefront where you enter, as well as we've adjusted those columns in the back, just at the residential entry.
And I mean, I don't know how far you are with the mechanical design, and not to throw a wrench in that, but to move away from all the grills, would it be easier to have, but like combination, like flue stacks for the ovens and for things like that, or no? Because the other thing is like what's the head height of those windows?
The head height is 7.6, I believe.
7.6. So then aren't you more or less dropping the ceiling down to like just above the head height in order to have the ducts?
No, so these are heat pumps. So we're
Oh,
putting
heat
heat pumps right above the window. So they're actually going to be right above, mounted to the ceiling, and they vent directly out of the window.
Okay, yeah, so I thought you mentioned that the bath and the hood exhaust too would.
Correct. Those are coming from the opposite side of the apartment, right? So
Okay.
above the windows where we put the heat pumps, the electric heat pumps, then kitchens, the bathrooms, those are all on the hallway side, if you were to picture, right? So the
Okay.
apartment. So then those have to vent and come out,
Okay,
right, in soffits. So, but we're keeping a 9-foot ceiling height throughout
okay,
all these apartments. Yeah, they're meant to. You want to live here.
You'd want to live here, yeah. Maybe someday I will.
And it also goes right along with, everything we've been reading, these are all electric heat pumps, so, they're the most efficient, form of heating and cooling we can get. And it's compliant already with what's just been passed in Albany, so. Well, you're gonna see a lot more of that to make that happen. So those vents, actually what they are is they're 6-inch round vents that are there for the heat pump units. But you can get conversions to get linear grills or do other things with them, and that's what we'd have to do to be able to get that. Otherwise, you're going to start to, it's a good question to ask people with venting, because if they put those in, you start to see the round, because they all need economizers, so you've got other intake and exhaust.
So the 3 rounds represent the heat pump, and the other 2 vents that you need?
No, so 3 rounds are for the heat pump alone.
Okay,
And then the others are going to be in another. So let's say I've got one here, I can put another one. I can get the exhaust for, probably this one would be the kitchen. And on this side, let's say above this window is the heat pump for the bedroom. And then the other grill I'll have for the dryer and the bathroom.
Yeah.
So you have 3, so you have a total of 6 per apartment. Right.
6, and they're all 6-inch. Yeah.
No, the bathrooms for the ranges.
But they're all behind them.
But they're all behind.
Okay.
That way you're
So it
not
looks uniform.
correct. Now, the trouble with going vertically, in some cases you can get it to work, but they're all independent apartments. So nothing can be connected. So we can't tie one vent into another and bring it up, because we have to keep each of them independent shafts that go up through the roof. Otherwise, we're going to get noise crossover, and they all have to be fire rated.
and then, yeah, that ends up,
They just keep getting bigger. as
takes
they
a lot
go
of
up.
real estate, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And the heat pumps, you can't do that with, but we could do it with the other, ranges.
Yeah, the range in the bathroom, so yeah. Well, I guess if you're gonna have the grill for the heat pumps anyway, might as well keep that detail consistent and use it for the.
That's
other.
exactly what we need.
Yeah,
That's
I
exactly.
think this is an improvement versus semi-random.
And we did try to tuck them up above the trim, and that didn't work, because depending on the siding that was above it or whatever material or trim work, it's half in the siding, half not, they're very specific. If you put that unit here, that's where it goes.
Mhm.
And then, okay, well, maybe we don't put it above the window, we put it somewhere else, but that didn't work in every apartment. So we didn't have really continuity through the building. That's when.
So this, in terms of like the grill, like it's gonna be a linear bar grill
Correct.
that looks
Metal grill,
exact, yeah, that looks like this, and it receives a paint.
that's it. It's going to be painted the same. as
Painted the
the trim.
same as the
Yeah,
trim.
the same, yeah. Okay, I mean, I guess it'd be, not to create work. I mean, I feel like it might be good to just see like a detail of that, like a blow up detail, just to see, like, is there going to be a really noticeable seam of the grill? And, I mean, like, I don't know what type of bar grill, I don't know, like how it needs to be thrown. I mean, I'm assuming that it just gets thrown straight out.
Yeah, so this
in
is
terms
not
of
a
the
grill that
exhaust.
comes with any of this. So this is a grill that we're purchasing.
It's
just-
just a grill, like an architectural grill.
That's right. Otherwise, because we can't get that to be this window size.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's gonna be, yeah,
So it's purely what we're selecting to be able to do that.
custom made, yeah, okay.
This is great, thanks. Where are you with the planning board now?
So we have a public hearing next week.
This week, okay. So I think probably commissioners, it's time for us to send a memo, even interim. I mean, I think we're,
I think that's what was, we don't need a public hearing here,
you know,
right? It's just the,
we're advisory at this
yeah,
point.
recommendations.
Yeah, we're somewhere between
Yeah, I don't know.
binding and non-binding. I mean, we're a little bit in flux where we are legally, but I think maybe the most truthful way to do it is to kind of separate what is in effect binding recommendations from non-binding.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about Michael's question about color. Might be nice to go back to the clients and just see how invested they are in the color. Take note that one commissioner raised that question. I sense that there was I was just watching heads on that question of the pilasters in front. I thought everybody seemed to be agreeing that that isn't right yet and could use more work. But at this point, I think what we can do to help is say for the first time, as far as the planning board is concerned, that this design is working well, generally, that we're down to, I guess, about a handful of details. I think that Shane's question about, many things going on in the facade, I hadn't actually seen that, but I do have some sympathy for what you're saying. I'm wondering, if there might be a solution, but for the purposes of the planning board, I think they just want to hear that this is I think so, that this is on the path to something that will be, fully acceptable. And we can easily do that ahead of next week's meeting. That's just takes the form of a memo.
So what would I then, which is great, thank you. So I have a clear path forward to come back and.
Well, I think the last thing Shane said, a detail on what's actually happening with the window grills, with those banding boards. I'd love to see what the profile that is, if there's a way to give us a sense, not only looking at it, but kind of looking at the side.
Okay.
Is that something everybody feels like you'd benefit from?
You're talking about the vent sign? No, you're also
Really, the
talking
whole
about
the whole window trim
Yeah, okay.
surround. So I think that would be helpful. I don't know how strongly I feel personally about the lighting question. I mean, I think it's a good question to ask, but
I don't think I would say at this point, I'm sure you're going to be confined in terms of how it drops off and it's
Yeah.
night sky approved, but also I think the decision about pole height and number of poles is not, I'm not concerned about that.
I'm not really either, which, for your purposes might mean just leave well enough alone.
Yeah.
Just don't.
I would say the rear issue is probably more of a concern that I've heard consistently from other developments on North Chestnut and how they impact. So headlight impact.
I would agree.
From the rear
I would
part,
agree with
so
that.
I would just suggest, as I've said before, that some kind of temporary buffer or barrier rather that would obscure the headlight to diffuse them like a fence until your landscaping matures and then something like that.
Yeah.
Great. And it can be, it's headlights, so it only have to be really high.
Right.
I'm not, the color issue, as I think I said, I'm not, I mean, unless other people feel strongly about it, I would withdraw that. So,
I agree only insofar as it's not really a color that we see in the village, but we're also really at the extremity of the village at this point, and it's new construction. So I would say, Jason, that might be in the category of just kind of reporting that back to the clients that it came up as a question. No, did you have a strong feeling?
I can maybe suggest a few different grays.
Sure.
Oh,
Okay. Camilla is very helpful to clients, does it all the time. And results are good. The other thing is I always copy applicants, so you will see what the memo is
Okay,
as well. So there shouldn't be any mysteries going in.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Yeah, she'll get it to us. All right, so work on the color. Pilasters, we're already actually making some adjustments on that.
Yeah,
Provide a loop detail for the louver. And
I would say the whole window, honestly. I mean, further detail of the louver, but I would
the window and the
love to
trim.
see a window trim detail.
And then I think the fence that was something that.
Oh, that's what I wanted to read.
For the site plan and. planning board.
And just on the window trim detail, the window surround detail, like an elevation, but also if possible, just, I mean, not like a super detailed section, but just a section showing, you know, like, I guess the depth of the trim and the window in relation to the, you know, to the wall finish and, you know, where the louver sits in relation to the trim. Because I'm assuming the windows, the louver is flush. You know, the window is brought back a little bit, you know, the sill is a little proud and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, that's really what I'm
Exactly.
hoping to
Yeah,
see.
we could do
because,
that.
because the
In fact,
elevation
what
might
I'll
not
do is I'll
clarify
just
that.
do all of this is 3D modeled, so I'll do just a little isometric that shows that.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
And this is well, like a Revit model.
Yeah, that's what I. Yeah, no, everything, even the HVAC system, we plugged it in already. It's a lot earlier than we ever do, but we plugged it in. The units we're going to use to make sure that that works, and then that's how we got to that.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, might as well design it early this way. There's no
Yeah.
surprises or
Yeah.
adjustments.
There'll still be surprises, but
Yeah.
limit of this.
Speaking of surprises, so none of the drawings is showing a safety fence. Is there any obligation to have a safety fence?
There is not. So
Okay.
we've got one spot.
Oh,
where
we're
we-
getting this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we will have to have some HVAC units behind the main parapet. But they will be, as long as we have a parapet, but even if you don't, as long as you're within 10 feet of the edge, there is no need for safety.
Okay.
Although we won't have anything other than right in the center behind that parapet. And that's a 4'6" high parapet.
I think I noted that last week.
Yeah.
And just curious, like there's no bulkhead, so how do you access the roof? There's just a hatch.
There's gonna be a hatch.
Yeah,
That's it.
that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, one of the stairwells, we'll have to put a hatch in.
Not gonna be a routine.
And again, it's only for the commercial spaces. So it's only what, five commercial spaces.
I think the last thing I would add, and because we're not really specifically suggesting anything, I do think another look at the facade would be a discussion worth having. You know, to Shane's first point, that there's vertical, there's horizontal, there's brick below. I mean, you were spinning some ideas, and that's something we're happy to
Yeah, well,
look
that would
at.
pretty much be to recess it in a bit. So to create that, you know, more of that corner steps in. I think that's something that I feel personally would maybe
Yeah.
speak to that, but also.
I think so too, because yeah, just looking at the elevation, in the corner, it looks like it's all kind of aligning. So, you know, any kind of like little articulation to make that, I guess it just go a little bit further with that concept would look good.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be great.
So what I would do is I'll zoom in and be able to, in 3D, show you how that's.
Because actually, I'm having trouble visualizing how that hardy board turns the corner without a,
The wood,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, without a corner board, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
I guess
no
it'll just be
corner board,
miter.
right?
Just miter. What do you do?
And it holds, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I
it
mean,
would,
we do
'cause
it all
it's
the
a-
time when we even do shakes and stuff. Generally in a house, you won't have any corner boards.
Okay. Cool. Jason, this is great. Do you think you want to come back next month or do you need some time?
When's that meeting?
14th, I would say. 12th, Monday, the 12th. Because it's a fairly short list of things that we would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I can do that. So I'm actually at the AA convention in San Francisco the week before, so I will be flying in just. That will,
That works.
that works, the 12th,
Okay,
and we can get this accomplished. by
that sounds great. It's very nice design. Yeah.
Good, and so that letter, I think we just have the kind or the public hearing next.
I think it's
Tuesday.
Tuesday, they meet. So, honestly, I don't think I can promise it tonight, but like in the next 24 hours.
Okay,
or
yeah,
so.
that'll be fine, before-
And Valerie's got your email. That's true. I remember. Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Had a good trip to San Francisco.
Yes.
Between now and then.
Nice.
Yeah.
40,000 architects getting together.
Exactly. There must be a punchline in there somewhere. I remember reading an article in the Chicago Tribune when my profession was having a conference in Chicago, and they quoted somebody saying, "They're nice people, but they don't tip very well." Like we're English professors. What do you? Thanks very much. Everybody, let's go ahead to HPC 2306, which is Jeff Noel from 160 Huguenot Street. Jeff, come on up. Thank you for your patience.
There is the.
I think the headline is the design's changed a lot.
The design changed and actually changed after some of your probing, to be quite frank. I went with a different provider that was able to put more of the panels on the back of the garage and only 2 on the front. Slightly different location, but it is on the front instead of 9 on the front. So that's effectively, yeah, there are signs.
That's a lot of difference, and in 2 pretty significant ways. So one of the things I would summarize from the items that I sent today, and I apologize, it was so late, but I literally didn't get to it till yesterday. It looks like the preservation community really wants oblique angles like R2 more than front-on angles. And so I don't know if you were even thinking in these terms, Jeff, but just that move to go perpendicular to the street moves in the right direction as far as preservation principles.
I wasn't aware, I'll tell you, is solar efficiency. It's far more efficient, and then I needed less panels, only 10 instead of 13. And therefore it affected the cost, which helps me.
Yeah. Well, my reading of really pretty disparate stuff, I was hoping that there'd be one document that just kind of said this for the country or said it for the state of New York, and not that I could find, but some of the underlying principles are, the obvious ones, to balance energy efficiency with preservation, to stay away from really obvious masses like what we looked at in the original design. And there are plenty of cases from what I could see that something like what's pictured in R2 is acceptable on pretty sensitive buildings. So this looks like a huge step in the right direction to me. The other piece that I've been thinking about for the last month is, we're in some ways setting precedent on Huguenot Street. I mean, there's been the case of 118 and there was the case on Mulberry just around the corner. Honestly, we had no idea what we were doing with the Mulberry decision because it was so long ago and there just wasn't any guidance. But we did have guidance with 118, and Shane, this is mostly just to recap what we learned from that. Keeping the colors as uniform as possible, as opposed, I don't know what the terms are, but the kind of octagonal sections that are visible are not recommended. And keeping it as low as possible to the roof. And then the one thing that just about everybody said is, building something up or putting them in a semi-vertical position when the roof isn't doing that is the no-no. So given all that, I'll just say I'm quite comfortable with this arrangement, and I think it provides a really good precedent for the next people on Huguenot Street who ask. Where it might get tricky is on a contributing property on Huguenot Street, but we've already dealt with that once. So I guess that's my thinking. Should go around. Michael, you're a neighbor.
We need to have a public hearing.
Oh, yes. That's real.
Well, that's okay.
If I told you about the week I've been having, you'd be sympathetic to. So here I am jamming away. Is there a motion to open a public hearing? Michael moved, Stephen seconded. Okay. Are there any comments? Oh, sorry. All in favor of opening public hearing? Any comments from the public, live or in person? Live or remote? Oh, do we have people on? Okay. Well, I think we've let the public speak. Is there a motion to close public hearing? Moved by Camilla, seconded by Stephen. All those in favor? Public hearing closed. So a follow-up question, you did speak with neighbors. Was there any resistance?
No, not at all. No. They all received the letters.
Well, the sign's been up, I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Problem there. Yeah, I mean, this is a significant change from the previous one. It means that almost all the panels are completely invisible from the street. So, and the two that are there, you would only see them briefly if you're traveling north.
Right.
So, I would say
Ambient stars is clearly, first of all, they're thin.
Yeah,
so they're gonna-
3.1 inches off the roof surface.
I believe that's correct. I do know that these are particularly thin, the unit itself. I've got what you put it on. I'll double check. I was trying to see on my laptop if I had that reveal so I could give you the exact. But he's certainly aware that they need to be as tight as they can be.
Right.
And the design is actually, the other panels were good too, but these are that, you're not going to see big sections
Yeah, I wish I
in them.
Do you know what those are called? The difference, the sort of monochromatic versus.
Oh, for like for the different cells?
Yeah.
Yeah, the cells, I think, some of them are almost bordered by a different, slightly different color, where these are not. These are, so it's going to be, I think if you looked at it real closely, you'd see a different shade of black,
Right.
but it's not like silver around. Okay, so
It'll be too dark to see when we leave this meeting, but just across the street is a very large array that has those silver octagons. And, they're definitely a lot more conspicuous than all of
The
that.
other one, the Huguenot Street, is also fairly monochrome.
yeah.
So I assume it'll be more like that.
And that was one of the discoveries we made when we had that application. We were really pushing on that point and the lower profile.
Anyway, you're asking, I think this is great. I think this is great design. It needs and without compromising the Stark district.
Great. No,
Yes, I have no objections.
Objections, I think it looks much better.
Agreed.
I'm pleased that it's a good solution.
Yep, no,
I really,
I went with another provider and different approach. They said, hey, we can do this.
well, that's,
It caused me a lot of scurrying around in the background to get everything
Yeah.
together, get the second set of engineers there to look at it, but we did it.
very good. Commissioners, are we ready to vote?
You want a motion?
Please.
I so move that HPC 2306 certificate of appropriateness be approved.
Second, and we'll just maybe make a note as amended, because it was amended just yesterday. Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hooray, what a great outcome. Thank you very much, Jeff, for your patience and your diligence too.
So the next step is. Right.
We can get going.
Perfect.
Thank you very much indeed.
Right.
Yeah. It's also a win for the, I think that we probably want to go to another one sheet guide and get some names, figure out what the terms are for the monochromatic. Maybe after the fact, we can talk to Jeff and get some photos. Great, wonderful news. So that passed 5-0. Kate, would you like to come up and join us? Thank you very much for coming out. Okay. Is there a way to make them visible? Copy. Okay, thank you very much for coming out. Everyone, if you don't know Kate Himes, she's the author of the landmark designation draft. Thank you so much for heading it up and I assume doing the work too.
Actually, no, we had a really good committee. They did most of the work.
Oh, even better for you.
Yes, even better.
Everybody, you've all had a chance to take a look at the draft. Does it seem to capture what we want to capture in it? Okay. I have a couple of, I guess, a really just basic ownership question. So it's written as if the Margaret Wade Lewis Center owns the building. Has that happened yet, or is this a?
No, it shouldn't be. The village owns the building.
Okay, right. So we need to fix that, but perhaps explain that the whole intent is eventually to hand it over, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, right, that's the bottom of page 1. We'll have to fix and explain that. On item 7, building materials, wood frame, shingle roof, stone masonry foundations, certainly accurate. Structural system, Shane, I think that means frame.
Yeah, stick frame probably.
Okay. So we'll just fix that. Kate, I've got all these written down. We can confer.
Oh, okay.
I can even work on that Word document. For me, item number 11, line 1, the house is representative of late 19th century vernacular urban residential architecture. I guess I would maybe just call it vernacular residential or town residential.
Yeah.
Urban, for me, conjures up like row houses or. And then the only other thing, and this is fairly major, is under item 13, we're going to want to call out which of those numbers we're specifically referencing. That I'm sure that we have to say because of 1, because of 2, because of 3, because of whatever. And my sense is it hits 1, 2, and 3. 3 is usually construed as a recognized architectural style, but I think residential vernacular is a style. So that I think that's as much a question to everybody as an opinion. What do we think? Which of the points 1 through 6 do we want to call out? Yeah.
You're asking now, but I
Yeah,
agree with you 1, 2, and 3 minutes, so certainly 1 and 2. 3 is, as you said, that looks, and I'm just, I mean, that can go either way, I guess. And then I'm just wondering about 5, whether or not, because I know the Green Coop had some stylistic elements, such as his attic window that was
yeah,
rather characteristic of his homes, and
right. That pointed.
yeah, and the pitch of the roof, and so that those homes do stand out in the neighborhood. So I thought maybe that one also, and the description underneath it seems to sort of reflect a little bit of that. Where it talks
Yeah.
about the house being prominently at the corners of North Chestnut and Broadhead. So, just thought.
I like that thought. Agree.
Yeah.
You know, we only need 1. And I think it just strengthens the case to, hit 1 and 2 hard, 3 and 5 with a lighter touch, but is them. Is that agreement? Everybody in agreement? Okay. Does anybody see anything that you'd want to change or particularly anything that should be added? I think the research is great. I didn't mention, here and there's a little thing that I'd like to correct or tighten up, but it'll take 10 minutes. So if we like the look of this, then I think the next move would be to schedule a public hearing for June 12th. And this would be a good time for members of the board to weigh in, either in written written form or to come to the meeting. No, I think that's going to mean signage, isn't it? And neighbor notification. Yeah. Oh, that's right. It's along the window, although we're bound by some notification periods that have to be obeyed. But we're also a month out. Okay. Is that agreeable? Move forward in June.
Yes, what would be involved in the public hearing?
Well, so public hearing would look much like what you witnessed tonight. The public very rarely weighs in. Occasionally that happens. The Margaret Wade Lewis Center would have to put up signage, and let's see, it would probably be half a dozen letters have to be sent. Try- 200-foot buffer. So anything within 200 feet of one of the boundaries. Any house, any address within that has to be noticed by letter. There's a basic form letter that Valerie has. There's a whole packet that she.
Okay.
Not make all the copies, you need to get a package.
And then is the signage also 20 days? Or
It's all part of it. You
It's
have
a little bit-
notification.
yeah, there's a little bit of a higher standard than usual. But Valerie's done this many times. It's
Okay.
it's a
well,
pretty-
I will count on Valerie's expertise.
yeah, and we can get that going this week.
So those letters going out to, is it just houses? Because there's the commercial property.
It would have to be
All the
included.
property owners.
All property owners within, so one of them would go to Stewart's,
Stewart's,
and then I can pretty well guarantee there won't be any pushback from Stewart's. And then it would be 6 or 8 or maybe 10 other properties. And then there's an affidavit that has to, probably the trickiest part of this is an affidavit has to be signed and notarized.
That would be-
By whom? By the owner? Because then that's the village.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. That's the only thing that I can see hanging this up is. I mean, we could be the applicant, and maybe that's what we should do. Historic Preservation Commission can be the applicant on behalf of or in recognition of Margaret Wade Lewis Center. We did it before with the Peace Park. It was just simpler to keep it within the committee, and maybe that's what we should do. Let's explore that, make sure it's legal to do so, but that would take a lot off your shoulders. Is that everybody's wish? I don't know if we have to vote formally on, well, let's do this. Is there a motion to schedule a public hearing with the HPC acting as applicant?
Moved.
Second. All those in favor? Okay. So Kate, that's what we'll do. We'll probably need your cooperation at some point, but we can actually take the lead since it's still owned by the village. We're acting as an entity of the village. And I think just have people come out the 12th.
Oh, okay. Now, does that impact like the letters? Would the letters then be coming from you, from the center?
Yeah, we would do the mail.
We would take care of the mailing. Yeah.
Hot pink version of letters to be posted on site.
Yeah.
That would probably.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I think we just took quite a few things off your back.
oh, good.
Yeah.
That's very helpful, because on June 19th, we're planning a Juneteenth celebration, so anything that comes off our little volunteer group.
Well, to say nothing of maybe having a result on the 12th, a week in advance. That would be a nice target. County wouldn't. Right. Yeah.
Okay, now for the June 12th public hearing, you mentioned, well, we can try and have as many people out as can come, but the other members of the board, et cetera.
Sure. And also interested parties are always welcome to send a letter in advance. We would make sure that's part of the record if somebody can't come that particular day.
Okay.
We're also streaming on YouTube and Zoom, so people can weigh in that way. That gives us a full month to get ready for that, but about 10 days to get the notification. And I've got this, I have this in both PDF and Word, so
Yeah.
I can work on those little changes.
Okay.
And I'll let you see it before we finalize.
Good.
Terrific. Thank you all, and whoever else was in on it for getting it done.
Well, in order to get the work that needs to be done, we have several committees, and we have what we call a historic building committee, and it's chaired by this work, when it was done, the committee was chaired by Vanessa Primus. And some of the members were Carol Lee, who lives on Huguenot Street, and Josephine Bloodgood, who works for Historic Huguenot Street. And I believe Mark Mass, the former pastor from the Reformed Church, was the committee that worked on this.
Nice. Well, thank you. And thanks for coming out this evening.
That's going to shift a bit because we need Vanessa to take on some other responsibilities. So the historic building stuff now will become my responsibility along with other stuff as it moves forward. Oh, and hopefully we'll get some more good volunteers and I can get that off my plate once again.
Okay.
Okay, good.
All right. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
very
much,
much.
Kate. Thank you. Great. Everybody, good. Good. So far, so good. Camilla, let's talk about the art show.
Art show is officially open as of Friday. And everything looks great. We worked hard on installing the artwork. James and John and Kelly Fisher came by to help
Oh,
us.
that's nice.
And she's going to donate some ribbons
Oh,
for the prizes.
prizes?
Yes.
That's great. And what is the total number of works?
41.
It's a good number.
Wow,
That's
nice.
nice.
It's good. Yeah.
To do because
You have to be strategic. about it.
yes, it's not an easy task to find a place for everything, but it looks great.
Great. And we have our judges.
Yes, we have our judges, Amelia Pate from Nannies, Zach won't be able to come unfortunately, so
Okay.
he delegated it to Amanda. And Valentina Veranas from Valentina's Costume Films and Gallery. And John from the library.
Good.
Do you still need water? Do you still need refreshments, or
Well, Stevie volunteered to get this.
I can get some seltzer, but I mean, were you still looking for regular still water? Because I can
Yes.
bring that also. I mean,
Okay.
I'll be driving, so it's
Okay.
easy. I'll just get that too.
That would
Thank you.
be really nice. It's a
Sure.
tough week for me.
And then I'll go buy all the rest of it.
We managed to get a budget of up to 250. Did I ask for 250 or
He
200?
asked for 250, and then in the email he sent us, he said 200. I didn't want to ask, which is, don't want to be too greedy, but
But I did ask for 250.
Yeah,
So,
Last year. I
Yeah.
never asked for
okay.
that.
Yeah. So
which
that's
is a
nice. But I expect we don't even need that much.
probably. So I will prepare a few appetizers myself. I sent you an email, some phyllo shells with feta cheese and mushrooms, some cucumber bites with groundnuts. And we will get some cheeses and crackers and tomatoes and fruits. Do you think we should get other items? What do
Um,
people like to eat at these events? I'm not sure. Finger foods, obviously.
gra- at least recently, grapes have been pretty good value,
Mhm.
and they, when washed, dried, and cut up into
Yeah,
bite size, they dress up a plate.
I'll get some greens. Just to make it
Okay. That sounds great.
But should we get like some things like that? You know? I'll make some cookies too.
I too will try to bring something. I don't know what it'll be. Yeah. I think keeping the scale simple. I mean, people aren't really there principally to eat. It's nice to have something. Yeah.
And besides, next year is our 10th anniversary. So I think at that time,
Maybe we ask
Maybe
for
we-
$500.
I don't know, but let's have a more lavish.
Is there any loose end you need from us? So Stephen's going to help with water and seltzer. You'd appreciate any offering of a plate of
Sure, if
whatever
you
it
feel
might be.
like- Of course, it will be included in the budget. Yes,
Can you, in terms of publicity, everybody knows, but maybe you'll send out
We
a
have some flyers to put at strategic locations in the village. This was
nice
made by Margaret. Margaret
This
Stanley.
is
I'll be like-
really a nice one. Is this one for each of us, or?
This is- I'm going
Oh,
to-
actually, you
I'm
need
going
to, okay,
post,
yeah. Really nice.
And then the brochures.
Yeah, easy come. This you can.
There you go.
Yeah. So ideally, you'd like us there a little bit before one.
Yes, I thought we get probably 10:30, just to, arrange everything.
Okay.
But the reception starts at 1, so if you are bringing anything, just please come maybe around noon.
Okay. Okay,
Thankfully, there is nobody occupying the room before us,
okay.
so we have. the rules of
That's great. Wonderful. It's always been a really nice event. So,
Fortunately, I won't be around. I'm gonna be in North Carolina for my sister's graduation, but
that's a worthy cause.
yeah,
Well, we always take pictures.
okay.
That sounds great. Thanks, Camilla, for everything.
Yeah.
This is,
Yes, thank you.
it's amazing to think it's been 9 years. This will be the 9th year. Such a great idea. Ooh, I think we probably should at least put it out there. Could you do that, Val, as an action item? Yes. I think in some years we've put forward our own photos, but they're never quite as well composed as prose. Great. Well, Camille, let us know if there's anything, and otherwise we'll plan to be there in advance of 1 o'clock, depending on whether we're bringing something or not. Item E2, we've taken care of. I will just work on the draft that was given me here and there. There are a couple of little sentence level things to fix. I'll explain the ownership issue and I'll circulate it as fast as I can for your approval. Item E3, it goes back a month, if not 2. Question about Bluestone sidewalks, and in response to Bill's suggestion that maybe that is part of a preservation issue, I thought it might be kind of a fun summer task for each of us to take a few streets, just kind of divide up the village, and in no particular hurry, just do a little survey, a really simple thing about where Bluestone is and maybe what its condition is. Try to compile them, and then we know what we're looking at. So I guess that would start with a village map, maybe would be the easiest, just kind of draw it up 5 ways or possibly 6. Okay. Okay. How about if in the next couple of weeks, Val and I will do that? Okay. DRB guidelines. So for the longest time, we've talked about window and door replacement. That's really on me, and nothing's going to change until my semester's over, and then it will change, Shane. I'll be in touch.
Well, I've been MIA the last few weeks too, so
It's just,
we'll find a time.
yeah, we will. But I think, the list kind of does grow, because I think siding and soffits for sure, lighting. And now I think we should, also be talking about solar installations, try to synthesize what other communities are doing. I'm super happy that this worked out the way it did at 160 Huguenot, because now we've got a precedent, we've even got a little narrative of, the way of doing it, A, isn't actually as good as B, and B is better for preservation purposes. So that played out beautifully. Shane, maybe when we eventually sit down and have that coffee or beer and talk about windows and doors, maybe let's just talk about all 4 together. Just get a head start on those, and then we'll bring drafts. Val, I don't have anything to add on the PB ZBA applications. Are you closer to any of those?
Basically what I say in the agenda, Autumn said she expects a revised site plan sometime soon for Water Street, and the updated plans for 184 Main arrived last week, and there's expected to be a review of PB pretty soon.
Okay.
So this one, but
Do we want to see those again? I mean, should I be alerting the planning board that we'd like one more pass at that, or?
You could look at the ones that are in the folder for 184, because they're there.
Okay. Last I heard, they were pretty insubstantial for our purposes, right? Those- Okay. I will task myself with that. If anybody else wants to look and just let me know what you think you're seeing, that would be good. Mr. Cook, what can you tell us about happenings on Huguenot Street?
At 140, I have spoken with Maria Turner. Keener, we did have a site visit. Christine, representing the Shade Tree Commission. Maria did get in touch with David Chepler, and he is at this point not going to be expanding any landscaping from his point of view. So she may plant something on her side, but at this point, there's nothing coming from the other side of the rail trail.
Okay. Which takes us, Michael, to your point about catching this at the point of application. I mean,
Yeah.
so we are actually learning
Yeah,
as
that's
we
too
go.
bad to hear, but
It is too bad to hear. Did she report any tone to the answer?
No, not this, looking at suggestions, not doing anything now, but not, nothing off the table for the future.
Well, what we can do is try to catch the question, catch the issue before it's an issue. 191 Huguenot Street back on the market, very interesting development. I don't get that.
I saw the signs. I have not heard a story.
I just know that the prices reduced.
yeah, quite a lot. Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, that's very little alert to me. We'll keep an eye on it, I guess. Nothing new from the Reformed Church.
I did ask Craig if you're gonna continue to be our contact, because I think that, he's just back. He said he would.
Okay. Okay. Good. Budget report is what you see. We've addressed that overage in personnel services by asking for more money next year for personnel services. We're obviously way low on contractual stuff, and that's pretty typical. So we're going to be fine for this budget year that ends at the end of this month, but we want to make sure to be transparent about our needs going forward. Number 8, I've done absolutely zero, and nothing's going to happen until the semester's over. Item 9, again, it's late enough that maybe this isn't the occasion to talk about longer goals, but one thing that I would say is still kind of in flux is where we are with the new, with the extension of HPC review for now the 3 different zones in New Paltz. So that's a really positive development, but it came up in the context of 137 North Chestnut. The applicant, Nick Werner, emailed Corey to ask whether he was or wasn't subject to certificate of appropriateness review. Corey said, in my reading of the law, you are not. I forwarded that to the mayor, who forwarded it to the village attorney, who said, yes, you are. So we're in a kind of limbo. But as of Friday, I spoke with Tim, and he said, as far as he's concerned, as far as the village attorney is concerned, we do have review powers, and we should continue to use certificate of appropriateness.
No, I have some concerns about doing that, because the COA is by definition is historic district.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I said Friday, that I think we need to develop something that isn't premised on historic appropriateness, but on good design that fits community standards. And I think in some ways it could be more open-ended form that kind of works on this principle of binding recommendations and non-binding, and then it goes forward to the planning board. You know, what I don't want to see happen is that we kind of go back to square one, where this all becomes kind of ad hoc. We make recommendations that may or may not be followed, depending on the mood of different planning boards. So I want to stay with this issue, and I think Valerie's right that we need a different form that would capture, particularly new construction is just fundamentally different from, you know, renovation work in an already established district. So for like the 5th time, I'm going to say that's not going to happen for another 2 weeks, but it can fairly soon after that. Training and professional development, there too, I haven't done anything, but I think several people have.
If you're receiving APP now.
Yeah.
Thanks. Other business, I caught something in last week's paper, I think it was, last week or two, that there's going to be a new Borscht Belt Museum eventually in Ellenville, but in July of this year, they're going to do a little pop-up, I guess, introduction. And that just felt fascinating to me. So as we hear about that, please let everybody know. And Pat's term as alternate is going to come to an end at the end of this month. I will make sure to ask her about her wishes. So far, she's been happy to serve in that, but she may want to cycle off.
You may need an alternate for June because I'm coming home from Greece that day.
Okay.
Getting in at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm unlikely to be here
No, I
for
think
the public meeting for you and Oliver House, unfortunately, but
Yeah,
just letting you know.
sounds like a nice way to spend early June. Really nice way. Well, my hope is that I've already sent our recommendation that George be appointed. So I'm hoping that the next village board meeting that's done, he's impaneled and we're able to do it. Since we're talking about missing meetings, I will miss the July meeting. I'll be out of the country. And there might be a possibility of joining you by Zoom. But maybe not. So is everybody else okay for the July meeting?
Yes, August, are we meeting in August?
We try not to. We really try not to, or if we do, it's usually like a one item meeting. So you'll be away in
I'll
August.
be away, yeah.
Anything on that? Okay. I don't know if we really need executive session for one thing I wanted to share. I told some of you privately that I made the decision to retire from New Paltz at the end of the semester.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm feeling the virtues of this, even though it's a very hard decision because I actually love my work, but I also love traveling. But that's really just in the context that I intend to stay in New Paltz. I intend to stay on the commission and even as chair, but my attendance may be a little spottier, which, you know, I think if we have an alternate or alternates, that'll take care of itself.
That's how you do so much more.
I know. You know, after like 40 years of being on the academic calendar, I'm really looking forward to the September travel, May travel.
September travel, yeah.
You know.
June.
So that's just, it's not really a highly personal thing, but that's the future.
It's fantastic.
That's amazing.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks. Is there any other business that we didn't get to?
But I can think of,
One for me.
Look at that, it's 5 to 9. A lot better than recent meetings. And we got some good things done, yeah. Everybody, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Seconded. All those in favor? Adjourned. Thank you all very much. Successful meeting. We'll see each other on, most of us will see each other on Saturday.
Look forward to it.
Thank you so much for doing that. Beverage, right, I'll get you back another time, but
That's fine.
this week is just.
Easy.
Have fun on Saturday.
Thanks, Shane, you too. What's your sister graduating in and where?
She's a qualified nurse now, back to school, to become a nurse practitioner. So,
Awesome.
Good.